what you need to do in this moment is ask yourself, is what this person said bringing me closer or farther away to my end goal? Welcome back to Pursuit, the pod. You've just been criticized. Now, in this moment, I want you to take away, if you ask this person their opinion, if they just gave it to you, whatever. Because at some point in our lives, we're going to be criticized, we're going to be critiqued, we're going to be told that something we're doing needs to be changed or something we're doing is wrong and it's not creating the optimal outcome. Now, as humans, we have this very deep sense of I, this sense of, especially when we respect ourselves deeply, when we get offended by what somebody says, it's because we have this thought of what they're saying. We take the objectiveness out of it, and we create these stories in our head of what it means about us as people. Now, this can be a lot easier to implement when you truly are the beginner or a novice at something than when you consider yourself an expert or that you have some kind of expertise in a certain area or you perceive yourself as knowing more. It's really hard to get past that block of, no, I know what is best, and not being so open. But really everything is a system of inputs and variables, and perhaps somebody else has a different input into the system and they have a different set of information and a set of assumptions that they're working under, and actually their method could lead everybody closer to the goal. Now, that's somebody who's thinking rationally, but what if somebody gives you a criticism that doesn't seem all that rational? Is there still some merit to it? I would argue yes, and I'm going to tell you how to do that. I've talked to you before about not taking things so personally, because we as humans do have this tendency to always think about the I and think about what this says about our character, and especially when we perceive someone saying something that does not align with the way that we wish to show up in the world or our identity. And what are our identities but just a series of experiences and stories that we tell about ourselves? And that's a whole topic that we could digress and get into at some point. But let's say for all intents and purposes, let's just make the assumption here that you have a set of identities, a set of beliefs about yourself that you hold are true. You're smart, you're hardworking, you are a deep thinker, etc. Insert here what's really important to you about your character. You're a loving person, you're philosophical, you're anything. Insert that right there. Now, when somebody gives you a criticism and it challenges that belief about yourself in some way, that's very, very uncomfortable. That's what happens oftentimes with criticism, even when it comes to performance-based criticism, when it's something objective about the work we did. We can often extrapolate that to it saying something about our character. And what I want to talk to you about today is removing that I, that story we tell ourselves, and that I from the center of everything. Now, it's certainly important to allow yourself to have that emotional reaction. That's something that we can't innately control. In that moment, you can recognize that your ego is being activated. And then you can you can start to remove all of these stories that we tell about surrounding what this thing is. And the idea is identify the objective goal underneath what this person is saying. Then that's the only way you're going to be able to discern for yourself if that criticism is valid. You extract the useful information from what's going on, and then you can decide if you want to adjust your behavior or not, and then you can let the rest go. And it's easier to do this when you truly know that you are the beginner. And it has utility to even when you do believe that you are an expert in something. And I'll give you an example of how I started to notice this in my life. So the other day at the hospital, I had a shift where my preceptor called out sick. And so how it works is there's called a preceptor, which is the lead EMT. And then as I'm still a trainee, I'm under them for 2 months. So they rotate around who my preceptor is. And essentially they're the main EMT and then I'm learning from them, right? And so this day, the preceptor was out sick. So it was just me representing the whole EMT team. And I'm only 2 weeks out from my training, so I feel pretty confident at this point that I'm getting everything down. I mean, I'm preparing to be truly on my own with the 2 nurses and the doctor. So it's the 5 of us on each shift. And so when my preceptor is there's 6 of us. And then on a normal day, when I'm off training, there's going to be 5 of us. So that's the scene. And this day we get an influx of patients and one of the nurses is getting noticeably overwhelmed. He is saying how things are not moving fast enough, beds are not being cleaned fast enough. You can just tell that this person's getting frustrated, right? And so the doctor and the charge nurse pull us all together for a little debrief mid-shift, to make the second half of the shift go a little bit more smoothly. And this nurse says along the lines of, it's really hard to do what we need to do when we don't have a tech. Now, I'm the tech, the EMT. I'm what's called the tech. And so in that moment, I felt very small. My ego felt, unseen. I felt unappreciated. I felt even defensive. But if you think about what this nurse was actually saying, the real message he was trying to say was that the system is not operating efficiently enough. And I was part of that system. Objectively, I'm still learning. I'm not moving quickly enough. I'm not anticipating tasks efficiently enough. And so this criticism was about performance relative to this goal. And what is our goal here? Our goal is to provide the best care possible, help the most amount of patients, and do it safely and effectively. And so if my actions or lack of actions were slowing that objective, then the criticism is valid. And it's not because I'm inadequate as a person. It's because my behavior in that moment didn't fully support what we needed. And so I, of course, acutely felt that emotion of, what am I, chopped liver? If I wasn't here, even one less lab would be run, even one less bed would have been cleaned, right? But a lot of that suffering comes from inserting the word I into everything. I'm not good enough. I'm being disrespected. They don't appreciate me. Instead, you ask, what happened objectively? What behavior needs to change? What can I change to better support this goal? And so criticism, whether we ask for it or not, in that case, I wasn't really asking for criticism, but I still got it. But sometimes we do ask for criticism and we do get it. We get the harsh truth. It's whether or not we ask for it, criticism hurts because we have an image of who we believe we are. And when reality in some way contradicts that image, we have this intense discomfort. And so, this pain comes from the gap between how we think we show up versus how we actually show up. And criticism can sometimes just highlight when there's a discongruence. Is that a word? It's a word, something like that. It's not congruent between what we think we show up as and what we actually show up as. And so you have to separate the objective world and your response to it. Two separate things are going on. There's always the objective truth, and then there's the story that your mind creates about what happened. Now, this is naturally. I'm not telling you not to create the story. We are humans. We interpret things all through our own filters and our own lenses. It's just important that you observe as much as possible what reality is without attaching your identity to it. Because in this way, one, you reduce emotional suffering, and two, you actually get to the goal faster. You actually get to what you're doing. That's what we talk about pursuit. Is how do you achieve these goals? And a lot of it is recognizing your emotions and processing your emotions, because shoving your emotions down doesn't make anything go away. It just comes up in other ways. But also understanding that what are you trying to achieve here, and not tying so much emotion to it. And a key thing here is staying a beginner. Because like I said, it's easy. I think it's easier for me in the hospital to accept criticism because I know that I'm new. I know that I don't know everything. But if you're an expert in something, feedback can become harder because you believe I should already know this, or I'm an expert, or I've been doing this for years. And this is the thing about when you have a strong tie to a certain identity, your ego becomes actually a lot more fragile to somebody questioning it. But critiques are data. Critique is data. Whether you ask for it or not, a critique is data. And data, zeros and ones, is it good? Is it bad? No, it's neutral. Data is neutral. And it's your interpretation of it that determines whether this criticism becomes an insult, having an issue with somebody, or an opportunity. And it's it can apply to all different types of criticism, like performance criticism, that somebody says you were too slow or your analysis is incorrect. And these can be a little bit easier this can be a good place to start because you can detach them a little bit more from your identity. If somebody looks at your PowerPoint and is saying I've critiqued some people that I review at work, and I can critique the results PowerPoints that they make. And I'm no, this is unclear. You need to put an arrow here and box this and make this green and make this sentence more clear. You can detach yourself. Oh, just because I'm correcting her PowerPoint doesn't think that she doesn't think I'm smart and can convey information. It's no, it's just subjective. And so you can extrapolate that to other types of criteria. For example, character criticisms. If somebody tells you, oh, you have your head in the clouds, and you think that you are really a deep thinker, it's it's painful because it touches that self-image. And if somebody describes you in a way that you dislike, that's just their perception. Their perception may contain some truth, but your discomfort here is coming from wanting to be seen differently, right? And the traits that they say are not inherently good or bad. That's the data is what they're saying. And then we paint the story about if it's good or bad and what this says about us, and one thing leads to another. But it's just simply that's how they perceive you, and that's it. And if how they perceive you is how you want to be perceived in the world, it's leading you more towards being who you are or who you want to be, which I know is a whole conversation in and of itself. But if it's more towards that, then sure, take it. But if it's not, if you don't think that it aligns with who you want to be, think about, does what they're saying have some grain of truth in it? Because think about it, they wouldn't say it if they had no reason to. There was something in your behavior that made them think that. So think about, can I use this as a data point to change myself, to make my outward actions align more with what I want on the inside? Or is it just completely out of left field and they really don't know me? For example, the other day I was having a big training, I had a training session in the morning, and then I was working at the hospital in the afternoon, so I needed to get a nap in before. The point is I had a lot going on that day, and I arrived to my event in the morning, and they asked me to stay longer for something if I wanted to, like for fun, to participate in. And I said no because, I don't have time. I need to go train. And I said, I don't even think I said I needed to train. I said, I don't have time. And they said, that's a lame excuse. And in my head, I'm thinking like, girl, if you only knew what I'm doing today and the care that I put into managing my time, right? Like they would never say that, but they don't know that. Again, they're putting their own filter on what I've said, and I'm again putting a filter on what they've said. And in that moment, I could have been offended. And like, of course, at first my ego is like, what do you mean? Like, you think I'm lazy and you think I don't know how to manage my time and da-da-da-da. Like, of course, like I think that for a minute or two or however long. But then I'm quickly like, okay, that person doesn't know me. That person doesn't know what I'm doing. And so would believing that person bring me closer to my goal of being a person who likes to spend their time wisely on their pursuits and like thinks everything that they do is valuable? Like, no, like listening to that, that's the data I was given, that me saying I don't have time is a lame excuse. And then objectively looking at that, is it true? No. Okay, I can move on. That's a pretty easy example not to get offended by. You can extrapolate that to more like deeper criticisms of yourself. That's why developing a strong sense of self is so important, because sometimes you will get comments out of left field and you're like, no, I don't. I know that doesn't align with what I'm doing. You can also have criticisms in relationships. And I think it's really, really helpful to think about and receive and give criticisms in relationships in the sense of a shared goal. Thinking about, what are we trying to build here together? Like, for example, like me and my best friend, like we want as long of a sustainable, supportive friendship as possible, right? Like, we want it to be as sustainable, as supportive for as long as possible. And what does that mean? That means, I'll give you an example. There was one time, and this was like the only kind of like major rift that her and I had, was she really needed me one evening, and I was stubborn about going to bed at a certain time. And so let's just say person A, person B. So person A really needs to talk to this person after a certain time, and person B wants to go to bed, right? So, and then person B doesn't answer the phone on person A, and person A gets sad and feels very disconnected from person B. Now, is person B in the wrong because they're disrespecting person A by not being there for them, not answering the phone to who they call a quote unquote friend who really needs them in this moment? Or is person A disrespecting B because B needs to go to bed to do everything that they want to do, and by calling, they're holding them up from the next things that they have to do? Who's in the quote wrong here? Answer is nobody. There's no right or wrong. There just is. Objectively, what's going on? Person A needs support. Person B doesn't understand the importance or doesn't think that they should sacrifice their time in that moment to respond. Now, when you think about it, person B can't just constantly answer person A all the time, because that's would be breaking the first word of the goal, which is sustainable. That's not sustainable to always be answering. At the same time, the second part, the connection, person B also can't never answer the phone. Like, person A needs to know that they can be supported by this person, right? Like, there's the goal here is to be there for each other in a sustainable way as possible and still connect. So what you can talk about in that situation afterwards is like, okay, we want to be friends for a long time, right? So you establish that when person A calls after a certain time, it's like you could call after a certain time, but you know that this is going to signify to person B that there's something really going on. And person B is also going to respect the friendship and be available because they do want to prioritize that friendship if it's after a certain time. And they will understand that if they are getting that call, it truly is important. And that's a way that you are both, you're working towards that goal of if it's a sustainable way. Let's say person A kind of needs to talk, but like it can wait, then they're going to wait. Like you're both adapting your behavior. Person B might answer when they otherwise wouldn't have, and person A might not be calling when they otherwise would have. You're both aligning your behavior to work towards this goal of being supportive, really good friends for a long, long time. So, like, the critique is not you are bad or you are wrong or you are needy or like you are selfish. Like, it's not all these stories that you tell about yourself. It's like what actually needs to be done. It's the critique is this behavior is taking us away from what we both want. And James Sexton, who's a divorce attorney, says people either don't know what they want or relationships fall apart because people don't know what they want or they don't know how to express what they want. And so I encourage you to really critically think about what it is that you need this person to change to work towards your goal of having a healthy relationship together, and also sitting down and asking yourself, like, what is the goal of this relationship? What are you trying to do here? And then in those tough moments, understand that you're on the same team. That's huge. Like in all areas of life, you're on the same team. Just like in the hospital, like we're all on the same team, you know? Like we're all on the same team trying to provide the best care for our patients. In friendships, we're on the same team. In romantic relationships, we're on the same team trying to create this happy life together. And so the ultimate mindset shift here is that criticism is not about your worth. It's just about alignment. And the question is, why would they say that about me? Or why would they say that to me? The question is, does what they said help me become who I want to be? And so going back to the very beginning, notice your emotional reaction. There's no need to repress what you think. You're going to have a feeling. That's fine. Got to process it. But recognize when your ego is activated. And when it is, remove this central I that wants to take everything personally as an insult. And identify the underlying objective goal of what's happening here. And then determine whether that criticism is valid or not. Then you're able to extract the useful information from that. And if you need to, you adjust your behavior. And if not, you got to let the rest go. You got to let it go. When you stop protecting your identity, when you stop trying to control how others perceive you, if you know your own soul, you do not need somebody to tell you who you are and who you're not. It's just important to also be willing to look at that criticism as a tool for growth. You're going to suffer less. You're going to improve quicker. You're going to move towards your goals quicker if you can remove some of this emotionality from it after you had your emotions. Okay, now let's get to the information part of it. What we talk about pursuit is how you achieve your goals. And part of it is being able to look at information objectively and make a change accordingly if needed. So I just want to leave you with the fact that the criticism is not about you as your character. It's about whether your current behavior aligns with your goal. That's what I have for you today, this Tuesday. As always, I'm so happy that you joined me here today, and I will surely see you on the next one. I hope you have a great week. Bye.